And welcome back, everyone, to the Kids of Naruto How Strong Will They Be series. So last time we did Tsunade, let's look at the other notable female Kage in the Naruto roster, Mei. In fact, actually, if you really break it down, there wasn't a female Kage because we know a lot of the Kages and like not necessarily what they do, but just who they were, and there wasn't a female Kage until Tsunade and Mei. Like they were the first female Kages. But regardless, Mei is or was, I believe, the fourth Mizukage. Yeah, I think she's the fourth. Because you have no, is she the fourth or the fifth? I think she's the fifth, actually. Give me 1 second. Mei, which Kage rank did she hold or title? I mean, we know what title she had, Mizukage, but she was the fifth. Okay, she was the fifth Mizukage. My apologies. And Mei, look, Mei is Bay. All right, like she fine, Mei fine. And she was exceptionally powerful too. She had a solid chakra reserve, like big enough to be Hokage. She was okay in hand-to-hand combat, but her skill came in her elemental releases. She was notable for Earth, Wind, and Fire. Earth, Wind, Fire. Earth, Water, and Fire. But apparently she also had lightning release, which I didn't know that. I'm not familiar with her having lightning release. She never used it, but then again, to be fair, there's elements we know a lot of people had that they never used. So either way, though, she also had two elemental Kekkei Genkai, which were lava release, which in her case took the form of acidic mud, and then boil release, which took basically the form of acidic mist. So yeah, exceptionally powerful, skilled elemental ninjutsu. So, what would some of the kids of a union between her and other characters look like? So let's just look at some of the Kage, like Kakashi. Kakashi we know is from the Hatake clan. I mean, is it really a clan or is it just a family? We only ever met two people, but whatever. Either way, Kakashi is exceptionally skilled, has decades of experience, Anbu training, mastered over 1,000 jutsu, or copy over 1,000 jutsu anyway. And without his Sharingan, he actually has an exceptionally large chakra reserve. But there's actually not a lot we can do that's unique for a kid of theirs. Now, to be fair, I think this kid would probably be the most well-rounded out of any of the group on this. Overall, I think, to be honest, except for maybe one. And we'll talk about that one in a bit. But because they would have their father, who knows over 1,000 jutsu, be able to teach them pretty much anything. He also pretty much has access to all 5 chakra natures, so not only will this kid probably have access to the boil and lava release, it's possible they have access to a strong lightning release and maybe even wind release. That one might be questionable, though. That does seem to be like the weakest one out of here, though, because Kakashi's main element is lightning, and Mei's main 3 are water, earth, and fire. So maybe the wind still takes his back seat, but maybe they can still learn it. And Kakashi's got so much experience that training the kid, getting some experience under their belt, knowledge under their belt, would not be all that difficult. But the problem is, if we're talking like from genetics and how like things kind of work together to create new kind of effects, there really isn't anything to go off of. The Sharingan wasn't naturally his, so this kid wouldn't be an Uchiha. They wouldn't inherit a Sharingan. So yeah, it'd be an interesting kid and probably be a very powerful kid. But definitely, I think the most well-rounded. Again, save for maybe one. But yeah, just nothing unique about this kid. But if you go with someone like, say, Gaara, now Gaara and Mei do have about a decade and a half's worth of a difference in age. But again, we don't really factor that in. We're just talking about a hypothetical. And with Orochimaru existing in the world and creating test tube babies, anything's possible. Science! So now you actually have a bit more to go with, because not only do you have all of Mei's Kekkei Genkais, her 3 main elements plus lightning, you also have Gaara's Kekkei Genkai of Magna Release, his ability to consciously control his sand, his mother's instinctual sand abilities, and he has knowledge of wind, earth, and I think fire. I know wind and earth. Either way. So he's also quite a skilled tactician himself. Also, the most powerful ginger in the series. I think very few people would argue that. The most powerful ginger in the series. But what is a more unique melding of that? Now, I see here, though, we can actually kind of play with the idea of things here. First off, could this kid maybe have, like, say, sand manipulation as opposed to just standard earth release? I think that's possible. Not to say they can't use earth release, but they'd have sand on their side as well. Maybe also, using magnet release to actually condense it down into earth and suddenly, like, making spikes of earth from sand. In the desert, they'd be nuts powerful. But there's also the idea of how magnet release can affect maybe the other two Kekkei Genkai. We know that he uses magnet release to increase the density of his sand. So what happens if you use magnet release on, say, her version of lava release, or boil release? Boil release, I don't see much working in its favor, just because there's not a lot, there's no real substance to it. It's an acidic mist, it's an acid. But the lava release, I could see it being similar to, say, to the sand release, but instead of hardening or increasing the density of the sand, it increases the density of the acidic mud, arguably almost crystallizing it while maintaining a liquid form, or just hardening it into a hard acidic crystal of some kind. I'm just playing around with the idea, but that's an option you could go with. It's also possible this kid could have access to wind release, because one of Gar's main elements is wind release. So there's that option, definitely. So this kid would certainly be a little bit more powerful in terms of what it can do compared to, or what they can do compared to what Kakashi's kid would be. Kakashi, though, I still think is the better all-rounder. Then you have the Raikage A. Now, Raikage, admittedly, I think is a little too old for her MMA to be getting hitched. I think he's, roughly speaking, the same age as Tsunade, whereas Mei is around 31 when we meet her. So there is about a 20-year gap, if I'm not mistaken. I can't find the exact age on A, but I believe he's at minimum in his 40s, maybe around the same level as age as Tsunade. Still, point being is that, yeah, I don't see them naturally getting hitched up. But this is an area now that, if in fact she does have lightning release, the lightning release now kind of, I think, maybe takes a little bit hold over the other abilities of Mei. If we were to max out this kid, they have lightning release, a lightning cloak, boil release, all that, all the elements. But I have a feeling that one of the Kekkei Genkais actually maybe gets beaten out by a more powerful lightning release here. So A probably trains their kid to be pretty good in taijutsu, which Mei is decent at, but not a master of. But I think you could go one step beyond here, because not only can you have a lightning cloak, I think you can also have the elemental Kekkei Genkai cloak. Now, assuming whichever one gets booted out here, because fire release or boil release both use fire. So I may assume this kid's going to have a fire element as well. Lightning, fire, and then it's going to be either earth or water. With that said, a boil release cloak, that's an even more dangerous cloak to have, or a lava release, acid mud release cloak. That one, it would be near impossible to do, just because you wouldn't be able to see through it. But a boil release cloak, or because we see them use a collaboration of water and lightning dragon jutsu against Madara, that's like a boil, because it's still a liquid, so it still can conduct electricity. So an electric boiling cloak, lightning cloak. So an electric lightning boil cloak, a boiling release cloak. I keep saying boil cloak, but it's boiling release cloak. That, because now you can't get near this person, otherwise you will melt. The mist was so strong it could melt the Susanoo, pure chakra. You add in lightning release, maybe not as strong as A's if you're using it in conjunction with the boil release cloak, but still enough to move at such speed that you can just grab someone, or just start zipping around and melting people's faces off. That'd be pretty awesome. So there's definitely some possibilities. Now, the one other person who might be more well-rounded as a kid than Kakashi would be his sensei, Minato. Minato is frankly just as skilled as Kakashi in many ways. Kakashi got a few more years on the battlefield than Minato, obviously, but that's just because Minato died. But overall, I mean, he's still just as skilled in the hand-to-hand combat. He's also fast, even without his flying Raijin. So this kid, most likely having two Kekkei Genkai, would be exceptionally fast on their own. Huge chakra reserves. But then if you're adding, say, flying Raijin, or you're adding possible Sage training, or you're adding Toad summonings, especially if you're adding Toad summonings, now you're using them in conjunction with elemental releases like Boil Release or Lava Release. You are getting someone who would be a lot more well-rounded. If the kid does manage to learn Flying Raijin or any real solid ceiling moves, you've got a problem with this kid, because now this kid knows how to use Flying Raijin and just spits out some lava and just aims it at someone, and it just appears out of a attack or a Flying Raijin marker. Well, now you've got a kid who's using their strategy to scary deal. That's one thing I don't think we ever saw Minato do. We saw him use the Flying Raijin to teleport a tail beast bomb out of the village, but we never saw him just say use a Rasengan or use just an attack and just bloop it out of existence and then have it come out another way. I'm certain that's partly how that when he massacred those ninja, how that worked, but yeah. Otherwise, Minato is still just an exceptionally powerful character. This kid would probably, if it's not Kakashi's kid, it would be Minato's kid, who is the most well-rounded between them. They probably have more orange hair, because yellow and red make orange, so there you go. But yeah. And you know what? Let's round it out. We talked about Gaara, and we just talked about Minato. Let's talk about Naruto. Again, there's too big of an age gap, obviously, but again, we don't factor that in on these kind of videos. So Naruto, if we're looking at, say, adult Naruto, who had access to as much as he did, has access to all 5 chakra elements, plus some Kekkei Genkai that we don't really see back in Boruto. But we know he got Lava Release from Son Goku. As far as we know, he still has it. And he's also got Boil Release from the Slug, Six-Tail Slug. He has a couple different releases as well. Magnet Release from Shikaku. So, now again, assuming that he has access to any of these, this means that apart from just the 5 elements, 4 elements, or 3, 5, 4, 3, 3 elements that this kid would inherit naturally, they could inherit the other 2, but more importantly, their lava release might lean more towards actual lava than acidic mud. Their boil release would probably be heightened thanks to whatever residual 6A tail beast chakra exists within Naruto from the Six Tails. And there's still 6 paths chakra in Naruto as far as we know. So this kid probably gets a boost from that as well. So this kid's going to have huge chakra reserves. Also have access to the Shadow Clone Jutsu. No joke, this kid's reserves are probably going to be much larger than, say, Boruto's or Himawari's. Mostly because Hinata herself, we don't really know what the level of her chakra reserves are. There's no, again, I wouldn't say it's implied. It's never been shown to be super large. I'm not to say she has a small reserve, but she probably has maybe slightly above average, especially with the Hamura chakra she got temporarily, which probably gave her a boost. She probably has an okay amount, a solid amount, but she's also not a active ninja anymore, to be fair. So there is that against that. But Hyugas, from what we can tell, don't usually have super large reserve. Neji is considered the strongest Hyuga to have ever lived. That is fact. Even when he died. And we saw him tire out relatively quick because his techniques don't use a lot of chakra. The most taxing technique that we see Hyugas use that use a lot of chakra are the rotation technique. And even then, only after a couple of them do they start to really tire out. So, I would imagine this kid probably has a higher chakra level than maybe Boruto. Maybe not by much, and this is going under the assumption that Hinata doesn't have 6 paths chakra still in her from Hamura. If she does, then I might lean the other way around. But, and this kid also could be very much a good container for Kurama when the inevitable happens. But yeah, even if they can only make a couple Shadow Clones, it's still a couple Shadow Clones that kids their age normally can't make. So that's still advantageous, which allows them to use all the elemental releases they know simultaneously. Teaching the kid the Rasengan would be, pretty skilled. And obviously this kid would learn elemental Rasengans as well. So, yeah, this would be a really powerful kid. I think the strongest kid in terms of skill and uniqueness to what they could do, though, it's probably either Naruto or it's A, because A also has huge chakra reserves, but then you add a chakra cloak onto that, which could be a mix of lightning and another element, and you do have the potential for a very dangerous kid. Either way, though, that's my thoughts. This is May, and what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. We'll be back in a little while. I got 3 more videos to do. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.